So to eliminate slack, if you really want to have a good single spey, there's things you must do. With the short lines, it's a good way to start out. As the lines get longer, things get a little more difficult, but the long lines allow for less stripping, more distance, all those kind of things. I have the Gale Force G Plus 14-foot 910, and I have a bridge tributary line, spey line. And one thing that'll help you is to not always have a rig this nice to cast, because if you have, say, a double taper line, which I don't, but we do have a spey line that one of my friends brought, and it's kind of an old school spey as opposed to these newer spey lines that are they're just so perfectly designed, and they're rear weighted for easy casting, and they're just a joy to cast. But this one Brian has is an older, like a mid spey, and I don't know if it's a mid spey line, but it's more of a traditional spey taper where there's not the big mass in the ass. It's designed probably to be more stable in flight. So the rear taper is skinny, and it's a usable taper, you know. The head goes from skinny and gradually gets bigger diameter, heavier and fatter, and so that rod doesn't load from the weight of that line. It loads mysteriously somehow, we found, through keeping the slack out and the tension in. And it's been a real challenge to practice with a line like that, and it's really improved all of our casting. So if you can come up with a double taper spey line or whatever, I don't even know, but if you can get a more traditional spey line, an older spey line that is a little more difficult to cast, you know, they have a tendency to maybe not land so rear weighted. It's a great line to practice with, because some of these modern lines are so well designed, they're like sheeting. This bridge, kind of a shortish mid belly line, is super easy to cast, very well designed. So the first thing is the lift. The lift has to be smooth, and you got to remind yourself that it has to be slow. So we start the rod tip near the water, all the slack out on the dangle, and we lift towards the target smooth and slow. Okay, you don't want to do it jerky and fast, so smooth and slow. And when you transition from the lift to the sweep, I don't want to see any rod bend happening, going from the lift to the, say I'm lifting towards the target, and then when I start the sweep, I don't want the rod to bend. I want it to stay the same. If it's going to bend at all, I want it to stay the same bent as it is at the very start. So what the problem is lifting too fast and abruptly, and then stopping the lift, and then sweeping too fast and abruptly and jarring that rod, and you're playing catch up for the whole cast. So lift slow and smooth and transition into the sweep. See, I barely bent that rod. It wasn't till the rod tip got out next to me, or began getting next to me, that I pushed with my bottom hand and puts a little more energy into the sweep. So smooth lift, smooth beginning of the sweep. See, just launches. Second thing is, that's about 3 things. But the other thing, of course, anchor placement. if my target is there, I want my anchor placement to be the fly. I want the fly to land between me and the target, okay? And I want it to land straight and basically not much of the fly line anchoring. If you have a long enough leader, you can anchor mostly leader. Okay. Kind of stuck there. So, anchor placement. The other thing is, you have to push with your bottom hand and rotate your top hand. Not just a little, but you want that rod tip, or you want the rod tip to be going up, especially after it passes your shoulder. So I'm going to lift, start, and then my top hand is going to act as a swivel as much as possible. If I'm going to lengthen my stroke, I'm going to do it with my legs, okay? So the longer your stroke is, the more forgiving it's going to be, the more acceleration you can get into it, the more proper acceleration you can get into it, okay? So I'm going to lift. See, I'll show you my legs. They're amazing. So you want to stay relaxed. And be like that. Okay, bend your legs, stay relaxed, breathe, don't forget to breathe. So I'm going to rock forward, lift smooth. Okay, top hand, the legs are going back and forth, relaxing. Top hand is rotating and pivoting. It really will make a difference in the consistency of your cast if you use that top hand as a pivot only and the bottom hand for pushing. Remember, you're going to get some stroke length and some energy from rotating the body. So if we're going to do a cast across, we're going to lift. Okay, and then be rocked forward, sweep long, rod stays in front, bottom hand pushes, rocking back on our back leg with that direction change, planting that anchor in the path, the fly, in the path of the forward cast, and then the forward cast, you know, forward cast, I want to be sweep, drift up, depending on how long a line I have or what's comfortable. But it does help to sweep and then come up for the forward cast. So you can use your bottom hand and your top hand and your fulcrums and your all that stuff, your parallelograms. So the thing that you got to remember though is, rather than thinking power on the setup for the forward stroke, you got to think smooth. You want everything to be smooth, and you especially want to be smooth not only in the lift to sweep transition, but after the sweep, after you've accelerated at the end of the sweep. That's the only time we're going to bend the rod, is right there, right at the end, or right at the last third maybe. Don't accelerate rod tip and bend that rod until the end of the sweep. But you don't want to get excited and have a big funky sweep. You know, you don't want to stop a perfect sweep, and then when you go into your circle up or drift into the forward cast, you don't want to over rotate. That'll give you a big wobble in your D loop. Oh, it's a Super Cub. So you want to be as smooth after the sweep and into the circle up as you possibly can to avoid getting big wiggles in your D loop. And when you practice like with that kind of older edition traditional Spey line, that is going to tell on you so hard that it will really help you. If you get a line like that, it's really going to help you improve your smoothness, because that smoothness in the lift, in the sweep, in all the transitions, in the circle up, keeping everything smooth, keeping tension in all of that, that is what makes you not have big funky D loops that look like the letter, you know, that are all. I'll show you a few. I made a few of those today. Here's a super ugly D looped revealing slack. This one's a little better. So it's really a matter of keeping so smooth and everything. What a setup this is. So get a really old, crappy, traditional Spey line, and then when you're good at that, get a gale force. So, smoothness. Another thing that will help that we've worked on today is you really are stirring the pot with your bottom hand, just like in Scandi casting. You really are, you're changing the position, but you really are pushing out. Casting like that, that might help. There's a lot of different ways to Spey cast. There's a lot of different styles, a lot of little things you can do, but the most important thing is make the rod do the work. Use your hands and your core and your legs and your forearms, relaxed grip to do the cast. Bend the rod when you cast. Don't hammer it. You should not have rod noise, okay? Let's see, I'm gonna strip off a bunch of line. And I'm gonna see if I can cast it without rod noise. The trick to casting long is to cast short. Get it smooth everything. And then cast the same way, only let go of the running line. Okay, very smooth. And on the forward stroke, instead of whacking it and having a bunch of rod noise, I slowed myself down and pushed and pulled with the proper amount of pushing and pulling, not too much bottom hand, not too much top hand, just a smooth, heavy pull and push. Another thing I'm working on is drifting higher for my own casting, because sometimes I don't even drift, and it does help. So okay, I stop the rod high, aim high. You don't want to drag your line through the cast. You want to cast it with the rod doing the work. I mean, if you're going to have a gale force G plus 14 foot 910 and a bridge mainstream, like, it's an expensive rod, and it shouldn't make any rod noise. I mean, I'm not saying that you might not get some sometimes, but if you're relying on a super powerful forward cast to get your cast out there, you're going to get tired. But if you slow things down, now I didn't like that. Slow things down and add the right amount of top hand, bottom hand. Don't overthink it. Just make sure it feels heavy, that you can see your hands. You want to at least sweep like this, and then if you drift back, that's fine. But the idea is let off on the power and don't make rod noise. So that was a sound I like. Anyway, smooth, heavy, no changes, no shocking the rod, no, don't try to go for too much power. If you go for a powerful sweep and you stop it really hard and then you raise up really fast, you're going to get a whole bunch of waves in your D-loop, and that's not as efficient as a D-loop or a V-loop that doesn't have slack. Do not muscle the rod. We've been here at the smallest Spey clave in the world, working feverishly on our single Speys. Here's some things that we've really been working on. We got 3 guys, and we're each critiquing each other's casts. And here's some things that I've been harping on, I've been working on. My friends are watching, reporting back what they're seeing, giving me ideas on how to make it better. The biggest thing we're working on is eliminating slack.